Senator Cassidy.
Thank you all. Ms. Green, I came on the tail end of Senator Murray's criticism of PDMP data, but what I heard, I'm thinking right on. You say 44 states, and I'm not challenging you, I'm just exploring. 44 states share data, but do they share all with each other or just an interstate compact?
It depends on the state. Some states share widely across. Some states have decided to only share within their region because, and the reason for that.
Okay, that's fine. I'm
Yeah,
just,
okay.
We're limited time. I don't mean to be rude.
That's all right.
And as I know, and I've mentioned before, Missouri, for example, does not have PDMP. But it's my understanding that a lot of states do not real-time put up their data. There is a delay. And that most states do not allow it to be shared with law enforcement. And I've read, don't know if it's up to date, that in 17 states, the VA does not share data with the PDMP. Is all that correct as far as you know?
Not quite. Law enforcement is able to access in every state, but the standard is different. 28 states allow it based on bona fide investigation. Others use a court order or a subpoena.
But in terms of Mr. Shaw's kind of hope that it can be used proactively, relatively few allow a proactive sharing.
That is correct, because PDMP laws are very specific about who can access this and for what purpose, and that purpose of proactive sharing would have to actually be written into the laws.
So now, Ms. Mahan, after Hurricane Katrina, it was amazing. All these patients have been displaced on chemotherapy, everything else, and somebody flipped a switch, and every doctor treating a Katrina evacuee had access to their prescription data. It was amazing. So a doc in Oklahoma City seeing one of my patients could access my patient's records and would call me, but he then knew the interferon that my patient was on and the complications, et cetera, et cetera. So it tells me, and I've actually seen an even more robust database than this, we're futzing around with PDMPs, but someone like you, Express Scripts, already has a more robust data set than PDMPs. Is that a fair statement?
So we have the data set of the information if the member is using their pharmacy benefit card at the pharmacy counter. So if the patient chooses not to use their pharmacy benefit and they're paying cash for the prescription, those are the claims that we would not see. But
so when I say, again, when I say I've seen a more robust version, I've seen a robust version of a data set which now includes the cash payment and every VA and is real time, as in when the pharmacy fills it, it is uploaded. And this is a mechanism to avoid for compliance with any kickback regulations with government programs. So we're, again, futzing around with PDMP with all its limitations, and we have before us a robust data set that's even better than what I saw after Hurricane Katrina. Mr. Shaw, this seems like nirvana for someone like you. You could sort by provider, you could sort by patient, and I presume geolocate within this data set. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that, especially from an analytic point of view. When we have a conformed data set like that, you can slice and dice from various different factors, get to the root cause drivers of certain trends. So certainly, to your point, Senator Cassidy, absolutely would be ideal.
So the degree that this data set exists and is compliant with current law, then we should be exploring how to use it. By the way, I have a bill in for PDMP, because right now, if that's the only weapon you have to fight this war against opioid abuse, you need to use it. But I keep on saying we should go nuclear. We should be using this data set, not the PDMP, and I just say that to assert. Dr. Clark, you probably gathered I'm a doctor, hepatologist, treated a lot of patients with liver disease. And some patients with liver disease got theirs from shooting drugs. Some are actively shooting drugs. And I say this not to challenge, but again to explore. If you looked at the history of somebody I was treating for, I would have everything. Have you shot drugs in the past? Are you still shooting drugs? When did you stop? Did you share needles? What, sexually transmitted disease? Have you had a blood transfusion? Did your mother have hepatitis when you were born? All this stuff. What's your mental health history? Because if I'm going to treat them with interferon, that's what we were using at the time, mental health was very important. Now, all that was covered under HIPAA, not under the mental health provisions. So your sensitivity, I thoroughly respect. My gosh, if somebody had come for those records, I would have, barred the door and used whatever weapons I could to keep somebody from using those. But at the same time, you sense that there should be a greater sensitivity. But I would again point out that I had all that information. whether the person was bipolar, for example. So knowing that you're the advocate and not challenging you, but just to explore, why would HIPAA not be adequate when, frankly, I'm already getting that data and I'm only covered by HIPAA because I'm not a mental health professional?
I think we need to be careful about a presumption of dysfunction. And we also need to distinguish monitoring from surveillance. And if we are not careful, we'll wind up viewing patients as dysfunctional by definition, and we'll be using our healthcare records for purposes of surveillance, for purposes beyond.
Okay, now that's totally foreign from what I was saying.
No, it's not, sir. I'm not just trying to argue with you. I'm just saying that when you start creating larger scale databases for the purpose of predictive analytics, you need to be concerned about surveillance. When you start regarding every patient as being dysfunctional from the outset, that you need to be concerned about surveillance. And that's my concern. One of the things about 42 CFR Part 2 is you inform the patient, you ask the patient. Dr. Mann's perspective.
You got to be brief because the chairman's about to start rapping on us.
Yeah.
Well-
Dr. Mann's perspective, you've got the patient
over
actively
time.
involved. And the patient consent is a guarantee.
I yield back. Thank you for your forbearance.
Thank you, Dr. Cassidy, and I'm sure we'll get back into that subject soon.